Stay on.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I am your host, Christian Williams, and I am here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing pretty good. A little tired, kind of pretty much since the last episode we've had. I've been sick from then through now and still working off and on, so a little tired. But we're anytime the lights just start shining, you get that energy.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm glad you're starting to feel better, right? Like you're feeling.
Yes, yeah. And I'm drinking coffee at 10 o'clock at night, so.
Yeah, I almost drank a bang about an hour ago, and that would have been bad. So. All right, guys, we are here. You know, we don't normally go live on Wednesdays, but we didn't go live on Monday because of the national championship game in college. If you missed that, it was a pretty good one with Georgia finally taking down Alabama. I guarantee that we will talk about that in the coming months, but we're not here to talk about that tonight. We are here. We said we were going to do a sort of fantasy recap episode. It's kind of what we're doing tonight. But we're also going to be talking through the NFL coaching carousel, some of the NFL playoff games this weekend, and that's pretty good. Randall flu game episode incoming, absolutely. And we will also talk through some fantasy football awards. So let's get right into it. Let's get into this coaching carousel because that has been flooding the news lately. There are a lot of job openings available. Seven. I can't count. And we're just going to start it off with the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Las Vegas Raiders are in the most interesting position because they fired their coach midseason. Obviously, we know what happened with Gruden, what feels like an eternity ago now. But they've made the playoffs now, and they're very far behind on their coaching search compared to some of these other teams. And their current interim head coach has stepped in and led them to the playoffs. So, Randy, as the resident Raiders fan, do you think that they're going to keep rolling with Rich here, or do you think that they're going to be on the market for another coach?
I think they're going to be in the market for a new coach and a new GM, in my opinion. I know they made the playoffs, but this team is underperformed. There's a lot of patience going into this with the new regime because it clearly needed a full rebuild, except the line and Derek Carr, and then they started to rebuild the line and still have Carr. For me, I think they're a few pieces away from being like just a playoff team next year instead of like a maybe push into the playoffs team like they were this year. And that one off season can fix that, but you have to make the right hirings here at head coach. I assume new GM just because there's been some not great picks, and then some of those, one of those picks not even on the team anymore, and still some issues around there. So I think there's going to be just getting a whole clean slate there, and I don't think they keep this interim coach who I believe is a special teams guy, if I remember right. Really, the only coach that I think has done a good job this year is their defensive coordinator. Obviously, this Raiders defense is way better than anyone expected, somewhat like the Cowboys defense this year. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think they just clean house and really try and replace some of the people they've lost as quick as possible.
Yeah. So Mayock, I think, is gone, like you said. I think we're going to be looking at a GM firing here after the playoffs. They're obviously going to keep him and Rich Bisaccia, who is the interim head coach, and yes, he was the special teams coach. I think obviously they stick through the playoffs, and I think we'll get to our playoff picks, but I think that's probably just through this week, and then Hey, they have the best chance of winning of any of these teams. I don't want to spoil the picks. I don't know why I keep trying to spoil the picks, but
You always do this.
I do. Yeah, I do. But I do think it's impressive what he's been able to do. Now, I will say I think that has mostly been the players. I don't think that he has coached them to the playoffs. It was just they were en route before the Gruden stuff. So
they have a lot of vets that have done a very good job of keeping this team together. Obviously, led by Derek Carr, who's the clear leader of this organization, not just this team. It's so. I mean, for me, I think that's gone. I think you just retool it. I really hope it's not like Harbaugh. I really don't want another old white guy that has scandals. Just I think it'd be just a smarter pick. Maybe poach, from within the division, like a certain Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator, or I mean, there's plenty of guys out there that deserve a chance. Hell, if he's looking for head coaching jobs, we're gonna get to him in a second. But in my opinion, Brian Flores shouldn't have been fired. So this could be a position where he could just step right in.
Yeah. And I think that Brian Flores is going to be on the prowl for a good defense. And like we mentioned, the Vegas defense has been vastly improved. They've been punching above their weight. Like their secondary should not be as good as it is. And it's good based on the fact that their pass rush is so good. But they do have some corners that, I mean, Casey Hayward has played out of his mind for a lot of this year. Nate Hobbs has been really good. And then the safeties, the 17 that Mayock picked last year, some of them have played well. Merrick has played really well, and Abram has kind of come into his own, and they've kind of found a role for him. So
unfortunately for this push, he's been gone for the last few weeks, or the last month or so. But him and Morik together really seem to be the future tandem. I think you need corner help, linebacker help, offensive line help, clearly a receiver one that's not Renfro, because you have Renfro and Waller, you have a project, and besides that, in Edwards, you need another guy there. But they're like I said, a few pieces off. I think this is one of the more desirable positions, especially being a playoff team already, and not terrible cap situation. I don't really remember, but we'll see. Like I said, I think Flores would be great. Usually, when head coaches get fired, they go back to coordinator for the next job, but.
Yeah, he
had winning record. He had 2 winning seasons, and they got fired because he wanted to move on from Tua.
Yeah, which strange, very, very strange thing that happened. We'll talk through. I think when we get to the Dolphins, we'll talk about that a little bit more. So
Matt Nagy should just not be anywhere. Let's just.
He can go be
he's a good coach. He's just not a head coach.
Yeah, and realistically, I can argue he's not a really good offensive coach anymore. So maybe just a position coach would be good. Freddie Kitchens treatment.
I think he should be in an offensive scheme with a pocket passer.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe he'll follow Andy Dalton wherever Andy goes after this year. All right, let's get into the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we know the Jags fired Urban Meyer a while ago now. That also feels like an eternity. And Darrell Bevell stepped in as the interim head coach. He did a terrible job too. A better job than Urban. But the Jaguars situation was so muddied by the fact that they have no good players. They don't have a good offensive line. They didn't have any pass catchers whatsoever throughout the entire season. And so I think that when you look at desirable jobs, though, you still have what should be a franchise cornerstone quarterback in Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. And so I think that will be desirable. However, there is the caveat that they are keeping Trent Baalke. And Trent Baalke is known for, Trent Baalke was involved in the Harbaugh situation in San Francisco. And Trent Baalke is kind of known for getting coaches fired. And so no coaches want to go there. There are rumors that both of the Cowboys coordinators have already said Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore they requested to interview them, and Dan Quinn declined. And there is a lot of buzz that a lot of top tier coaches are going to decline for as long as they keep Baalke. It's a shit show, man. Like I guess where do you see them going from here? Do you think they have to go to a coordinator or even a position coach, kind of like the Joe Judge route?
Yeah, I do. I think we're going to get what we had in Houston this year, where it's a guy that maybe deserved a shot but isn't getting the looks. And unfortunately, he's not on this list, but he may be within the week's end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think it might. I mean, the only thing there is the front office staff is sticking around, whereas I think here you might get one of those tenure coaches, and then that just deserve that chance and just won't get it in a good situation. They take this one, they get fired after a year. I think Walke gets fired too, showing just a pure clean sweep, which means we have completely wasted the first 2 years of Trevor Lawrence's career. So great GMing.
Yeah, it's problematic, and Balky being there to make decisions after the decisions that he and Urban made together in the last draft. He should have been fired after that draft. I mean, taking Travis Etienne is fine if you don't have James Robinson. Taking Tyson Campbell over, I don't even know who was available at that time, but like there were a ton of questionable decisions that were made in that draft where I could argue he should have been fired immediately. But people blamed Urban for it, and I think that maybe Urban did have a little bit of influence in that. So
I think Urban was given more control than he deserved. And and I think that's why they're keeping him around. He kind of fought for his job, saying, "Hey, you gave him too much control over this. You had me kind of defer to him, and look at what he did to your organization. Give me a run with a new coach," kind of thing. I don't think we're going to get any better. So hopefully for Jaguars fans, maybe they go back on this decision, kind of like how the Giants have gone back on all of their decisions of late and all of that scenario. But hopefully for them that happens. If not, hopefully we get one more year of this bullcrap and they can move on and hopefully have a chance of keeping Trevor Lawrence past 5 years.
Yeah, it's
6 years probably with the tag, but still.
It's bad. And here's the thing with that. Trevor Lawrence has picked up some really bad tendencies where he had problems in college, and we talked about those problems on this podcast, and I got roasted for it all the time, and that's okay. He had those problems and he needed to fix them in his first year with a competent head coach. And the problem is that he did not get that, and now some of those problems may be too far ingrained for him to work himself out of. There was I tweeted it out last week, but there was an NFL division rival. I think I said this on last week's show, but an NFL division rival of the Jaguars who said he looks a lot like Sam Darnold did with the Jets. And that kind of hits because he does. He makes a lot of those bad decisions and he's just wanting to bail. That's not going to get better if they don't get talented players in there. So I'm hoping that they come up with some kind of solution for the head coach.
We'll see, man. I think best case scenario for them is they get maybe a guy. Maybe it's not like maybe it's like Pep Hamilton. A guy that me and you brought up last year that deserved probably head coach interviews and wasn't really getting them. Maybe they give him a shot. He's kind of a quarterback guy. Maybe he can help plan this offense to cater to the strengths of your quarterback like good coaches do. But we'll see. I don't have great expectations for them.
Yeah, me neither. All right. Speaking of not great expectations, the Chicago Bears fired Matt Nagy and the world rejoiced. And then they fired Ryan Pace and the world kept rejoicing. And then their owners got on a press conference and ruined everything. They basically blamed old players and said they were liars. It was the biggest shit show of a press conference. But the Bears culture and organization wouldn't have it any other way. However, the good part, Matt Nagy is gone, Ryan Pace is gone. Ryan Pace did one good thing while he was the GM of the Chicago Bears, and that was draft Justin Fields. Louis Riddick went on.
We'll give him a couple. I mean, there's Montgomery, there's Mooney. Komet was a good pick.
Yeah, He made some good picks. He was actually pretty good with skill positions, and I could still argue that Trubisky isn't as bad as people think he is. But
Tevin Jenkins. I mean, I think drafting wise, he was relatively good. It was everything else,
yeah. But they cleaned house. I think what's going to happen is they're going to hire I think they're hiring simultaneously, but the GM's going to be hired first, and then the head coach, I believe, is the order that they're doing it.
That's usually how it goes, unless the coach is going to be like a GM as well, or have more say.
I will say some teams have transitioned to coach then GM to align the GM with the coach rather than the coach with the GM. It really doesn't matter as long as everyone's aligned, and the number one thing that matters here is that the GM and the head coach believe in Justin Fields, because I tweeted out too. I tweet a lot, but the Bears, you're going to hear a lot of, well, Justin Fields wasn't drafted by this regime. What if he struggles in his sophomore year? First of all, he's not going to. He showed enough down the stretch that if they put some pieces around him, they get him some pass catchers, and they have a competent offense, he's going to be very good. But second of all, those two people, whoever they may be, are going to be there because of Justin Fields. There is no other reason to want to go coach the Chicago Bears. They have a good defense. They have David Montgomery, like that's cool. They have Darnell Mooney, fantastic. They have a decent couple of pieces on the offensive line, but there's really not a whole lot to build off of other than the potential superstar quarterback that's sitting there. My question to you, Randy. So we talked about Brian Flores already. A lot of Bears fans are split on what they want, and I think Flores is the name that's come up a lot for them. But after what you saw with him and Tua, do you get concerned about that being a potential avenue?
Yeah, because I think he wants, especially after what's just happened to him, I think he wants a finished product quarterback. Whereas his Fields is clearly not yet. I mean, I don't think we could even begin to act like that's the case. He's not a finished product, just like Tua isn't. So I think it may stave him off, especially with a more aging defense, except maybe like Johnson, that corner. So I think this is one of those positions where I think he just kind of staves off. I don't know if he takes a head coaching job this year. He may sign a 1-year deal as a DC or something to kind of pick his spot, kind of thing. But I haven't gone over in depth who the top candidates are, but for me, you got to have a guy that can cater to somewhat of a quick game here, with a zone concept run scheme for Montgomery to really. I mean, he's a bursty guy. He breaks tackles, but one cut is usually his best offense. Mm-hmm. So something like that with Fields being able to make quick decisions, but also when the running game's going that well, you can make some good plays, especially with his legs and his cannon of an arm. This offense could really explode. So I mean, there's plenty of offenses like that. I mean, I'm really struggling with names today, but getting the Bills OC or I think that would be a good one. I mean, obviously they don't run the ball, but it's because they can't. I think he could easily be able to adapt to having a top end running back.
Yeah. If here's the thing. So the Bills offense struggled at times this year, and I think that's kind of soured the market on Daboll a little bit, but they did put in a request to interview him, which is fine. My thing is that you don't want Justin Fields out there making those Josh Allen level mistakes that he did in his first couple of years. Justin Fields has the confidence to get through that, just like Josh Allen did. And Justin Fields doesn't really have the mechanical issues, so maybe those mistakes aren't quite as relevant or prevalent. But yeah. I think that offense would be fantastic for Justin Fields too.
I do as well. I think Kellen Moore would be a nice one as well. I think it would be a good transition from the Cowboys to the Bears with good running backs there. But I mean, there's good running backs in Chicago, I'd say. And then you got one receiver right now. I think you could rely on a tight end. You could rely on the differences. But by this time next year, the Cowboys offensive line and the Bears offensive line could be pretty similar. So
that's true. Now, a name that I think should be floated out there, you talked about a zone read kind of offense and a little bit of quick game. Clint Kubiak from the Vikings, their offensive coordinator. We saw what they were able to do when they let Kirk throw the ball this year. So I don't think Chicago needs to be run first. I think that going with
No,
a modern offense makes
they'll
more
be
sense.
balanced. Yeah,
Yeah.
they need to be balanced.
Yeah. But Kubiak would bring the outside zone, move in the pocket a little bit. And we haven't seen the Vikings do that 100% this year, but they also missed Dalvin Cook for some time. And so I would be intrigued by that name. It's a legacy hire, though. Like, Kubiak has gotten his jobs off of his dad's name, and that's okay. But, like,
Well, and
if he's
if
the
his
best
market dries up, it could be he could end up on like the Browns to retool his name kind of thing for a year or so in the same offense. It's still getting the job for his name and the scheme, but it could rebuild the brand for himself at this point.
Yeah, that's true. All right, next team, New York Giants. Congratulations to all New York Giants fans for not having to deal with Joe Judge anymore, and especially not having to deal with Dave Gettleman anymore. That whole situation was a train wreck. It was kind of a train wreck from the start. It's over, though. Joe Judge, the players went to ownership and said, we don't want Joe Judge in here anymore. And that's pretty much the decision that was made based on that. They were planning on keeping Joe Judge. They had meetings, and then 2 days later was when he was fired. The Giants are perennial underachievers ever since Eli Manning left, and even the last year that Eli Manning was there. This is one of the least desirable situations to me. Randy, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think it's more desirable. Is it more desirable than the Jags? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is because it's a clean slate. Yeah, it's just barely because you have a quarterback here, but it's not like you would be tied down to Danny Dimes. You could, they're a team that could possibly trade for Lake Watson, trade off Daniel Jones to the Texans and let him compete with Davis Mills kind of thing. And so
Davis
we'll see.
Close at least.
You know what I mean? But that's a very real possibility with this team, with a new GM, because Gettleman, that wasn't happening. He was very stuck in his ways. We knew who he's picking. It hasn't really worked out. You've had a couple picks that I think were really good, but you've built through the line, like the fronts for both sides for the last decade, it feels like, and you don't have dominant either way. So you obviously haven't done your job, in my opinion. There, Joe Judge has been nothing. I mean, he's a special teams guy. That's his peak.
He's trash. He's terrible
I don't
coach.
think he can. Well, he didn't breed a good environment there. It's not just the losing. Like this,
right.
It's very hard for a coach to have players not like him at all. Even on a losing team. So it's really a sign of bad things to come. But I mean, you got Saquon near the end of his deals. You just paid a big name receiver. I think your receiving core has a lot of upside. The line has some upside. The defense, especially in the secondary, has upside. I mean, there's good pieces here. I think a good GM can really have some fun here and make some key moves to make them a contender in an ever evolving division. I guess that's the nicest way I could say that. And then, some big trades happen, some good draft picks. You have 2 first-round draft picks as well, which makes us even more. 2 top 10, I believe. So, I like it. I don't know the coach I would like here at all. Because health has been the biggest deciment to this team this year, I would say, but still.
Yeah. I mean, personally, if I'm the GM going in there, I'm just sticking with Daniel Jones this year because I know that the team's really going to be bad again, no matter what I do, I think. That, like you said, there's a lot of promising pieces, but I think they should be actively trying to lose so that they can go reset at quarterback in 2023. There's an off chance, though, that they say, no, we're not doing that. We're not tied to Daniel Jones, and we've seen enough of Daniel Jones to know that he's not going to be our guy on a second contract. So let's draft a top 10 quarterback. I think we could see one of Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, even if they want to make a big splash, Desmond Ridder, like a lot of different names might get mocked to the Giants in the next few weeks. I wouldn't do that. I'd kind of wait it out and see what he has, because he has flashed at times where you're like, something might be there for Daniel Jones. He cleaned up his turnovers, but I think the new GM is just going to say, this is more of a Darnold situation, I think. So, all right, let's move on to the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings cleaned house too. And this one doesn't make a ton of sense to me because Zimmer, we definitely, if I'm a Vikings fan, I say, yeah, we need to reset. We need to reset the coach. But Spielman at GM did a really good job for a really, really long time. Letting go of him, I think, is just, let's get something completely different in here and see if that works. The problem is that they're built to win now. All of their money is tied up in Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson's going to need a contract here in 2 years. And they're very much so a win now team. So the full reset doesn't make a ton of sense to me. What do you think they do with all of those older pieces? Kirk Cousins, is he the quarterback of the Vikings next year?
Yes.
Yeah,
dude, it's so weird because like they are a win now team. They're a team that should have made the playoffs in both of our opinion.
Yep.
And it's a desirable position. The weapons you have here, an offensive line that's been attacked in the draft for the last 3 years. I don't think it's finished by any means, but there's some good pieces there. I mean, you're getting a weapon back in Irv Smith, who you had a competent weapon at tight end in Conklin this year, and he's nowhere near as good as Irv Smith, athletically and big play wise. So for me, I think this is very desirable. I think you keep this. The reason Zimmer, I think, had to go is because he lived and breathed off of having this kind of offense with a good defense, and he couldn't get a good defense on the field. They couldn't draft good defense because they were fighting to get a good offense. They didn't balance it enough, probably. But it makes it interesting because I know they need an edge rusher going into this draft, and I know a few guys who me and you would have pegged to go there because they're big, long, powerful. Set the edge guys. I don't know if that's still the same brand for this team now. So we'll see how it goes from here. But I think this defense needs to retool, and they could make another run next year. I think you get a coach that you think can get this done right now. And again, I think this is another spot for Kellen Moore, Kellen Moore, or any of these bigger name offensive coordinators go into a new spot, just because you have the weapons right off the bat. And then on the back end, you could work to get a quarterback of the future and a running mate for Justin Jefferson of the future.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, like, this was the most successful head coach that got let go. Brian Flores is up there as well, but Zimmer went 72, 56, and 1, and he had 2 playoff wins in his time. I believe he was there 7 years.
Yeah, both with Case Keenum at quarterback, I believe, as well. So,
yeah, it's crazy. But there was obviously friction between him and some of the players too. He kind of ran a dictatorship there. And
well, yeah, he's the reason that Justin Jefferson doesn't have the Vikings record right now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an asshole for that. But yeah, everyone said he was an asshole, and that's kind of why they moved on. In terms of like a fit, I think Byron Leftwich would make some sense. And I know it's a completely different offense, but if they're trying to reset completely, they've got a receiver. They've got 2 receivers.
Is it a completely different offense?
I mean, in the traditional sense of what I think Arians likes to run, yes. I don't know what Leftwich would want to scheme, though. and that's kind of the thing. Leftwich is calling. I don't even know. He's not even calling it. It's kind of like the enemy with Kansas City, where they're running the Arians offense. So I don't know what Leftwich would want to do with that team either. So
I mean, just knowing what he ran as a player, a good running scheme that he has already. I mean, with Dalvin Cook, and then a lot of play action, a lot of quick game. I think a lot of the passing game has come from a little bit, I would say, more Arians with a mixture with Leftwich. I think the rushing game has come more from Leftwich, in my opinion. Just
yeah, probably. But yeah, that's a name to keep an eye on there, I think. And we should put the quick disclaimer out that these teams are requesting interviews right now, but there probably won't be hires for another week or so. I say that, and there'll probably be breaking news that someone got hired tonight. But all right, let's move on to the next team, which is the Miami Dolphins. So this is one of the stranger ones. This was, again, like Randy said earlier, Brian Flores had 2 winning seasons. He just won 7 games in a row and 8 of their last 9 and almost made the playoffs. But there was friction between him and the GM and the quarterback. And as I kind of mentioned with the Bears, GM, head coach, quarterback alignment, those 3 things, they have to be in line or your team is not going to be successful. That is the clearest thing that you can say about all NFL franchises. And that just was not the case with Miami. Flores did a really bad job of putting together an offensive staff that would put Tua in successful positions as well. I think that has been a major problem. Anytime you have 2 offensive coordinators, I think you're kind of destined to fail. But Flores rode his defense to, again, 2 winning seasons. He's apparently interviewing with the Bears, like we mentioned. He's probably going to have more interviews that come up soon. So in terms of what the Dolphins do, I think this is kind of like a Pep Hamilton type of situation too, right? Like it's got to be a coordinator. I don't think they're going after Harbaugh or anything like that.
No.
I also don't think Harbaugh wants that job.
No. Well, it's Miami.
True.
You know what I mean? He's in Michigan right now, so Miami. Yeah. Really, for me, I don't know who it's going to be, but I think you're in the right mindset. This has to be, they're clearly sticky with Tua. That's what this firing is about. Tua's the quarterback of the future. This GM has staked his claim to Tua to being his success or his demise. So the coach that's coming in has to be a quarterback-focused guy. So, again, we just brought him up. I think Leftwich is the situation for him. Pep Hamilton. I wouldn't say Kellen Moore necessarily, although I think he could work here. I think Dable, clearly, this offense doesn't like to run the football either, so just bring it on over.
Man. Yeah.
It's in division. It's the spite. It all works, right? Yeah. It's literally why they hired Flores, right? So it works out that way. I think getting someone that's going to really unlock Tua is the best way, but I just don't know necessarily who that'll be. I did hear rumblings of Bill O'Brien getting looks places. That could be a terrible hire that the Dolphins could make. But I will give him credit. I think once he became coach GM, both started to suffer terribly. But when he was just coach, I thought he did a very good job at the NFL level. We know as an offensive coordinator, he can get it done at college and NFL level. So, maybe that's a chance here. I mean, he's made a few quarterbacks look really good at Alabama. I don't think Bryce Young needs him necessarily, but I think Mac did, and I think he's already worked with Tua,
Yeah. My thing with Bill O'Brien would be if you completely remove him from all personnel decisions, But the problem is, like we just talked about that alignment, he'd still have to have a hand in it. It's just he wouldn't be the one making the final decisions. I think that might be a good situation. I think what the Dolphins need to do, though, is get a freaking running back that is good and can shoulder the load when Tua is not on. Tua, a lot of people have split opinions on Tua, and Tua ran an RPO-based offense for far too long this year. Like, that's what their offense was. And I don't think it was because Tua can't run another offense. I think it was because that offense was so incompetent. And so we'll see what happens next year, I guess. But
it's one of the more baffling places because I really don't know, because it's a baffling fire. It's not about coaching there. It was about personnel decisions, and and whoever comes in knows knows where they stand in that regard, because clearly.
Yeah, it's true. And I will say they haven't done a ton of good things in putting together that team either. They've struggled to put together a good offensive line, and so they have work to do on the offensive side of the ball. But
it only took you half a year to get on my side.
No, I was always on your side, but
you were not. You said they don't need to draft. They should draft Waddle. It's a good pick. I get it. It's the same thing with Chase. Like, that's a great pick. It's the right pick, but it's also the wrong pick. And if you make that pick, you have to overcompensate later, which neither team fucking did.
I know. They did such a bad job. And they drafted poorly too. Like,
yes.
Well, hopefully they do better, but they have the same GM, so they probably won't. So Tua's doomed and everything sucks. All right, let's talk about the Broncos, where Vic Fangio was fired after 3 seasons. He went 19-30 as a head coach. However, he had a lot of good players on his teams. And so while I think that the GM did a really good job in getting talented players out there, Fangio couldn't make it happen. And he said it in his last after his last game. He said, the 3 teams in our division have a quarterback, and we don't, pretty much. And he's just taking people down with him because he knew he was getting fired. But Fangio out. That means that the Broncos, I think, are going to be major players for a quarterback this year. And I think that they're going to find a head coach that I think they're going to be after Nathaniel Hackett from the Packers to hopefully try to pry Aaron Rodgers away, but I don't think it's happening anymore. So
we'll see, man. This is quickly kind of becoming a less desirable job, especially with what we learned today, that this team could be sold within the next few months.
Yeah, that's true too.
And trying to hire right away with that going on is going to be very, very tough. So we'll see how they get off on that. But I think Fangio was in a little bit over his head. Like he said, he didn't really have the quarterback that this team needed, per se. I think me and you are both believers in the upside possibility of a guy like Drew Lock. And he really hasn't gotten a time to shine. So hopefully in the future he does. I doubt it's with this team. I think he'll be one of the pieces moved, no matter what quarterback they go for. I agree. I think they go for a veteran quarterback. I don't think they draft another young guy. This team and this defense especially is kind of win now. You're going to have to start paying receivers relatively soon. You're still rebuilding the offensive line. So I think there needs to be kind of if you're going to win now, you need to really get a head coach that can get that quarterback excited to come here, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's weird because we talk about them being win now possibility with getting a new quarterback, but then they just traded Von Miller to be not win now. So it's kind of it's like a hit or miss thing.
But then extended their 2 receivers to have their trio with Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton getting deals. Yeah. And so I don't really know where they're going with all of this, but I know they have young pieces on their offensive line. They have a ton of young pieces on their defense. They did ink Justin Simmons to another deal as well. And so they are as win now. They're very similar to the Browns in that aspect, where I think that they have to go for it no matter, even if There are question marks about the Browns quarterback that we're not going to get into. There are question marks about Drew Lock and what that quarterback is even going to be. I think there's a chance that they do roll with Drew Lock because I think that Drew Lock showed something down the stretch that he showed that he improved in the areas that he needed to improve on, and also he still has a massive arm. Maybe they don't give him a shot, but I'm kind of hopeful that if they miss out on like the big name free agents, they don't do something stupid and go for like Marcus Mariota or something, which I think would be an upgrade too.
The Broncos is the team I really want to trade for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, legal cases pending, but I think it'd be Drew Lock and picks for Deshaun Watson, and then Lock can compete with Mills, which I think Lock will win, and he gets an opportunity to actually show what he's got. That's it. For selfish reasons. That's kind of what I want to happen.
Of course, yeah. All right, and outside of that, I have no idea who they're going to hire because I don't even know which direction they want to go.
Exactly.
This feels like a good Harbaugh spot to me because I think that with it being so win now, but feeling like they're kind of on the outside looking in because of that quarterback situation, Harbaugh can draw one in, and I think that that's what they'll try to do.
So. Yeah, and with guys like Elway lurking in the shadows of the organization kind of thing. Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for the NFL coaching carousel. I'm sure that we're going to have more discussions about this as there are new hires. We'll have new segments. Content isn't stopping because the NFL season is stopping, guys. As you know, if you've been around for a while, we have tons of NFL draft coverage and prospect coverage and just NFL news coverage through the off season. So make sure you stick with us through all of that. Let's get into our NFL playoff predictions and kind of make some picks here. So the first game that we're going to talk about is the 9-7-1 Steelers, who should not be in the playoffs, versus the 12-5 Chiefs. The Chiefs are 12.5-point favorites, and the over-under is 46 in this football game. Ben Roethlisberger went on he was doing media today, and he said that they don't have a chance. He said, we don't have a chance, so we're just going to go out and have fun. He was being sarcastic, I think, but also if you just didn't know who Ben Roethlisberger was, you'd say, oh, he really believes that he doesn't have a chance, which he'd be right. He'd be right. I don't think the Steelers have a chance in this game.
Oh, no. Mahomes would have to play his worst game of the season, maybe.
Of his career.
He's had a bad season, especially in the beginning.
I know.
So
yeah, this game. So, do you think the Chiefs are going to cover that spread though at 12.5?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
I think they get. Yeah, I think they get out to a 2. It may not be for the whole game, but I think they get out to a 2-touchdown lead.
Yeah, I think they win by probably 3 touchdowns. I think I said at least 2 touchdowns because we picked a little bit on the Derby Royale yesterday. So, yeah, this game, not a whole lot of storylines either. I mean, this is just the Chiefs are going to pound the Steelers, and no one really wants to watch this. And I'm sad that the Chargers called timeout because if they don't call timeout, there's a chance they're in the freaking playoffs, and then we get to see a different matchup.
The analytics say that at 30 seconds you should call timeout, even though you're not going to get the ball back.
Yeah, they do say that. Yeah, idiot. All right, let's move on to real games, and this is actually a real game in the Patriots versus Bills. 10-7 Patriots are going to Buffalo to play the 11-6 Bills. The Bills are only 4-point favorites in this game, and the over/under is 44. Randy, how do you see this playing out? Do you think that Mac Jones has a chance to go beat Buffalo in the playoffs?
I mean, he's got a chance.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Okay. I was quickly trying to find the weather for this game because that's the difference. The first matchup in Buffalo, weather was terrible. Mac Jones didn't take over the game, and the Patriots won. And the other side, it was, normal winter weather, like 30 degrees, nothing terrible, and the Bills kind of got away with it. So,
We have to remember that Randy's also a Patriots fan, so he's going to struggle to pick against them.
Family Patriot fan.
I know.
It looks like it's wind chills below 0 degrees. Grounds crew may have to remove some snow. 30% chance of snow showers in the morning to 1 p.m. Cloudy, high near 9 degrees. Kickoff 8:15 p.m. Wind speed only at like 10 though.
Yeah,
but that cold. I was still the AFC has tough games, and I'm gonna go Buffalo, but it's gonna be fucking fair. It's gonna be just Josh Allen willing them late, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is a 1 touchdown game, and for that reason, I think the Patriots could cover because I do think that they are able to keep it close. However, I don't think that betting on Mac Jones to go to Buffalo and win a football game is a smart decision because we've seen now down the stretch all of the things that have plagued Mac Jones as a prospect and even as a rookie when he was having this godly rookie season. They've come to light. He hasn't been good. He threw a pick six, I think, to end the game last week. It's Mac's in a little bit of a slump already, and I think the Bills might be able to take advantage of that. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, if this is akin to their first matchup, I still think the Bills have an overwhelming chance to win it, but I would give it to the Patriots. Just like if they can run like that again, I just don't think they will. Probably closer to the second matchup, which means I think you give it to the Bills barely. You just hope for their sake it doesn't come down to coaching.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. All right, third game, another one of Randy's teams versus Joe Burrow. The Raiders are 5-point underdogs in this game, and the over-under is 49.5. So this is our highest AFC over-under. The Raiders are coming off one of the best football games I've witnessed in a while. The overtime win against the Chargers was incredible, but it wasn't really incredible because of the quarterback. Derek Carr had a pretty rough game. Josh Jacobs had an incredible game, but Josh Jacobs was limited in practice today. I think they're just kind of getting him ready for this weekend. But how do you see this one playing out? Do you see the Raiders as a potential upset candidate here?
Yeah, I think they are a potential upset candidate. I mean, I don't think we could sit here and not realize how similar this game is to last week. I mean,
right.
I think the Bengals are a very similar team to the Chargers. I think they've got a little bit more lucky breaks here and there as compared to the Chargers this season. But I mean, both hella explosive offenses. I think talent-wise, the Chargers defense is better, but the Bengals defense has played above their head all year. So, this is going to be a tough matchup. Honestly, I'm going to pick the Bengals because I'm not going to pick the Raiders because if I pick the Raiders, there's no chance they win. So I'm going to pick the Bengals. Don't get me wrong here. But
that's fair.
Honestly, the Raiders pass rush could win this game for them.
So the pass rush mixed with Josh Jacobs are the two reasons that I think that the Raiders are at least able to cover in this game. Again, it's only 5 points. I think this is going to be a field goal game, one way or the other.
Honestly, to me, the only game that I don't think will be an ultra good game is the Chiefs Steelers of the entire weekend slate.
Yeah. And there's one more that I think could get out of hand. We'll talk about that in a second.
Could get out of hand, but we know that one's at least a 2-touchdown win.
Yeah. So I would pick the Raiders to cover if you're betting. I think the over might hit in this game too. I will say the weather here in the southern-ish part of Ohio, I don't believe will be good this weekend. So that could be a factor in the over-under, but I do think that would favor the Raiders too. I think if the weather is bad, here's the thing. It doesn't really favor either of the quarterbacks because both of them have their limitations, but I think that the Raiders will be able to run on the Bengals more than the Bengals will be able to run on the Raiders. So
it is going to be below 30, but looks like not really any weather to speak of.
Okay. Well, that's good, I guess. But
Still, it's a Vegas team coming to Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get over to the NFC side. The first game that we'll talk about over here is the Philadelphia Eagles going to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. Bucks are 8.5-point favorites, and the over-under in this one is 49. So we're going to see some higher over-unders on the NFC side, as you would expect. But in this game, the Eagles have built their entire offense around running the football. The Buccaneers haven't been as stout against the run this year, but they still are one of the better run-stopping teams. Jalen Hurts has been able to open it up a little bit here down the stretch, and I think that the Eagles' offense is efficient. Do you see the Bucs' run defense being the main problem in Philadelphia competing in this game?
Yes.
Okay.
They're getting healthier throughout as well in Tampa. So it's just gonna be outmatched in my opinion. I know the Bucs offense is definitely hindered by injuries and other things. But
injuries, we'll call that an injury too.
Yeah, we'll call it an injury. Sure. But for me, it's just one of those they're doing enough on offense. I think they looked really good last week as well, getting back with new pieces and everything. So I think they just roll the Eagles here. I would say I don't think I'd take the points here for the Eagles, but I think it'd be Brady putting the game away kind of thing late more than it's going to be a closer game than the Chiefs Steelers.
Yeah, I will say too, I think playoff experience matters. And while the Eagles have some guys that were on that Super Bowl team, I think that number has dwindled pretty significantly. And so I don't think that the Eagles will have Tom Brady's number. I'll put it that way. I think the Bucs cover. So I think it'll be a good game to watch, though. I don't think that it's going to be one of those that the Bucs just put it on them. I think it's going to be close throughout. So. All right. Next game, and what I think is probably the best game of the weekend. It's the San Francisco 49ers going to Dallas to face the Cowboys. The Cowboys are only 3.5-point favorites. That's actually up. They were only 3-point favorites as of yesterday. So the over-under in this one is 50.5. That's our highest playoff over-under, which makes some sense with how these offenses have been playing as of late. What do you think is going to happen in this game, Randy?
There is always an upset.
Yep, I know.
We will not get 1, 2, 3, 4 on both sides of the bracket going into next week. This is the one I would pick.
Yeah.
I think the 49ers have been arguably the best and most consistent team through the second half and most of the season, and I'm going to pick them here over the Cowboys, who have been very inconsistent on offense and the defense has been, again, better than what we expected, but it's really just thrived on turnovers. And 49ers generally limit mistakes. And if there's no mistakes to feast off of.
Yeah. So Kevin on the Debbie Royale last night put it best. He said, I'll tell you who won based on one item in the box score. And it's, did Jimmy Garoppolo have a good game or did he have a bad game? If Jimmy had a good game, the 49ers won. And if he had a bad game where he turned the ball over, Cowboys won. I think that there's a chance that Micah Parsons is as elite as he has looked all year and he's able to kind of game wreck a little bit. I think there's an equal chance that the 49ers defensive line does the same damn thing to Dak, because we've seen Dak be more inconsistent this year with turning the ball over and just kind of holding the ball. I don't know what's going to happen in this game. That's why I asked you what you think is going to happen.
But boy, if the Cowboys offense is firing and this 49ers offense continues to fire, this is going to be a fun fucking game. Akin to what the Raiders and Bengals should be and what the next game should be. Yeah.
This is my most, I'm most intrigued by this game, and I think I picked the Cowboys, but this is, guys, 3.5. That's virtually a pick 'em. A 3-point home favorite is just a pick 'em at that point. And so Vegas doesn't even really know. They're giving the Cowboys the edge, I think, because of the Elijah Mitchell news. It's that he did not practice today, but he's expected
But
to play.
again, I don't expect anyone to practice.
Exactly.
Anyone
I
that's
don't.
been anywhere near an injury report is not practicing.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So I'll take the Cowboys though, just for fun. We should do a bet on it, but I don't want to.
It may not be this game. It may be the next one. It might be the Patriots. It might be the Raiders. Someone is winning. Yeah. And it's not going to be the Eagles or Steelers.
yeah. It's definitely not going to be those two teams. But I also feel like there was a team that the Colts. I said the Colts won't lose to the Jaguars. That's absolutely not happening, and then they did. So maybe it is one of those two teams. But all right, last game that we'll talk about: the Arizona Cardinals versus the Los Angeles Rams. Another one of those, pretty much a pick 'em, 3.5-point home favorites to the Rams, and the over/under in this game is 49 points. This one's tough for me because I think that the Rams have been playing pretty poorly, and Matthew Stafford has been playing pretty poorly over the back half of the season, and I am uncertain on if they will be able to put it together against a Cardinals defense that has obviously been pretty shockingly good, but has some dudes, and the Cardinals have been playing a little better down the stretch as well. I think both of these teams are fraudulent, but I think that if I had to bet on one, it would be Kyler over Stafford at this point, which sounds crazy.
Yeah. The Rams went all out to win a Super Bowl.
They did. They signed Eric Decker. That was the final move.
I think Rams on paper are one of the better teams to beat the Bucs and beat the 49ers, maintain the division. I think they should have beat the 49ers last week. And I think I agree. I think the Cardinals are a bit fraudulent, but I think it's a bit because they're just not fully ready yet because a lot of their key players are still really young. I think next year they'll be even better. Just like I say, the Eagles don't have a chance. In my opinion, especially for our friend Adam and our other Eagles fans friends, I want them to lose. And it's not oh well, fuck them. I don't want them to win a Super Bowl. No, if you get 3 relatively good picks in this draft, you are set up for within the next 5 years to have a what the Cowboys have right now, or what they should win the division every year, and they should be a top team in the that's what you're hoping to set up to, and hopefully Jalen Hurts gets to that point to where he can carry that. But we'll see. It's exciting.
Yeah. So so I think I took the Cardinals in this game as my upset, because you're right. There will be at least one upset. I think the Cardinals do it. Who are you taking in this one? Do you know?
I'm going to probably take the Rams. I'm going to do these picks tomorrow, honestly, but
yeah,
I want to pick the Cardinals. And I think if I got a full clear that JJ Watt was playing, and I'm pretty sure Hopkins has been ruled out for this week. I think if he's full go, I would have been more on this side, but with probably both of them out, I think the Rams just have enough to get over the hump. I believe these teams split in the regular season as well, so this is really who's the best in the division of the season, and I think the Rams are just going to ink it out. Stafford needs to figure this out, but maybe the return of an actual healthy Cam Akers can just propel the Rams on this run that they've paid for.
Yeah, they certainly have. Craziest thing is on an EPA per play basis, Stafford is pretty much in line with Goff and the type of production that has come from the quarterback position. So that's going to be interesting discussions over the offseason. I don't want to get into it right now. I just hope that this is a good game. That's what I hope.
Same.
All right, you ready to get into some fantasy football awards?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to kind of we'll go through these.
Discussion.
Yeah, but no graphics for this one if you're watching along, because we did these late and I didn't make anything. So the first award that we're going to talk about, though, is the most improved player of the year. I took this as, a player that maybe finished pretty low in overall finish in 2020, that just took a second, third, fourth, whatever year leap and became very, very relevant in the fantasy football world. Randy, since it is who it is, can you announce who our most improved player of the year is?
Yeah, it's Hunter Renfrow. And I understand that this isn't necessarily a full year thing, but the dude is finishes wide receiver 11. And pretty comfortably. I mean 9 points, but he's very close to being 10. Honestly, if he had a slightly better game last week or got a little like one more catch, he would be 10 over the guy that had another catch, and that was Keenan Allen. But I mean, what a season. He stepped up when the Raiders needed it most. He's a guy that finished wide receiver 60 last year. So I think it's pretty clear he has to be the most improved, especially when I think me and maybe you more than most people valued his talent and valued his role for this team and what it could be, but I don't think we even anywhere near close envisioned it be like this. Like being the go-to guy over Darren Waller, leading this team to the playoffs really with his just uncanny ability to always be open. He is the the Edelman incarnate. He's with no off-field issues. The dude was 50 in college and has been married for 72 years or something. Like he is full. Him and Carr are like the perfect pairing. And I made a joke with my dad the other day that if for some reason the Raiders traded Renfrow to the Buccaneers, Brady would play for another 6 seasons just to play with Renfrow for another 6 years. Like he could not get enough of this guy, and just props to him. I mean, this is ridiculous. Like I think I don't even know where I started him out to be off the top of my head, but I think at best, I think I would have fought with you over this. It's been like 30. Like
Yeah,
I still haven't even found him.
I had him in the 50s, is what I had
Yeah,
him
52. That's what I was like. He's going to get a slightly improved role, but this is also with Ruggs on the team. So, I think if we'd have known there had been no Ruggs, I think we'd have both had him.
Yeah.
Back in 30s, still not 11. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, here's the thing, too. He actually got more inefficient this year. So 128 targets, 103 receptions, 1,038 yards, but his yards per touch came down. He was very consistent over the first 2 years, 8.52 yards per touch. That came down to 8.11. His yards per catch have decreased each year. And then the main thing that has fueled it this year is the touchdown production. So no Darren Waller for a lot of the year definitely helped out his production. And we might be looking at Hunter Renfrow as like a regression candidate next year, at least closer to he won't be wide receiver 60, I don't think, but like I think we could be looking at
think
him.
I think we'll both won't be anywhere higher than at best a mid-tier wide receiver 2 next year when we go to projections.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, I might stat him out as a 3 and everyone will yell at me, but yeah, so a lot of factors in it, but he balled out and he showed that he can
he had a nickname the last few years of being third in Renfrow, and early on in the year he told reporters that he likes the nickname, but he'd like to be a first in Renfrow and an every down in Renfrow, and he's clearly become that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, his rocker step, he put that corner on skates in the last game. It was insane.
Plain and simple, he has very soft hands, very consistent catcher, can make some contested catches, some of those jump ball, excitable balls kind of thing, but just plain and simple, he is one of the better route runners without being one of the better athletes. Yeah. And he's just dominating in that regard.
For sure. All right. Next award, comeback player of the year. There were a lot of options for this, but we kind of went a little deeper and we picked Sony Michelle to be our comeback player of the year. Now, the craziest part about Sony Michelle is he didn't even get run all that much. I mean, he had a couple of, 10-point games. He had a couple of games with more than 10 carries, but when Darrell Henderson went down, that's kind of when Sony took over and was getting opportunities. Over the back half of the year is when he got most of his points, but he finished as the PPR RB32. He ran for 845 yards this year. And if you told me, I told everyone, I said, Sony Michelle's really good. And I was a Sony hater, but over the back half of last year, I kind of saw this coming. But then when he got traded and they kept sticking with Darrell Henderson, who was also really good in his own right, I kind of said, like, this isn't the best situation, but I think he's still better. Well, turns out when given the opportunity, he wasn't a full-time fantasy performer, but Sony Michelle he was getting drafted at the very, very back of drafts, fantasy football drafts. So Sony Michelle, comeback player of the year. I'm intrigued by where he will be next year because it won't be in Los Angeles.
It might be. I think they may
backup.
move on from like Henderson kind of thing and keep it.
Yeah.
Obviously, Akers is the running back here, but we'll see what happens. I will say it's weird because like I think there's good runners up for this last award and this one, and maybe like the next one. But like the last award, just quickly, I think Cordell Patterson was a good shot there. It's just Renfro finished higher, so we went there. This one, I think Fournette was a really good shout as well, but he also was relatively high last year. Like it wasn't what he finished this year, which was, running back 1, but Michelle literally from the dead. But just quick shout out to him. Basically, really, it's just opportunity, not talent. But it's whatever.
It's true. It's true. And there is no debate over this next one, Rookie of the Year. This is the easiest one. Who are you going to shout out?
The shout out would be Elijah Mitchell.
Okay.
I guess Waddle.
I was just going to say the shout out would be Jalen Waddle to me. But this is Jamar Chase. Still fairly easily. Like, those guys were great, but Jamar Chase was legendary. The kid is the thing is, as he's as advertised, but like we advertised him as he still had issues. He still has those issues. He can still get better, and he's doing this already in the NFL. That's absurd. This kid could end up being the greatest wide receiver of all time. I don't think that's out of question.
I believe in our scouting rankings, he is my top receiver ever so far. Obviously, it's not like we've been doing this for 20 years or something, but right. Like he's over Justin Jefferson for me. He's over CeeDee Lamb. He's over Jerry Jeudy, who I'm still infatuated with. Like he is talented, uber talented. He went to the perfect situation for him. If they could just, eventually draft a line, which they won't, but if they could, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, they need to, but this one's easy, not too much talk, but let's talk about the quarterback MVP, and that is his teammate, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow had a season in which he finished QB7. He was drafted well outside of the top 10. I say well outside, but I think it was actually just outside. Joe Burrow was drafted at QB. I had it pulled up and I closed it. I can't even find him. So Joe Burrow was drafted after Trevor Lawrence, Matt Ryan, Baker Mayfield, Trey Lance. Yeah, I can't even find him. He was drafted really low, and he finished as QB7. He had an incredible year. It really came down the stretch, too. He had 2 final performances. He didn't play in Week 18. That doesn't matter for the fantasy season, but his last 2 performances, he combined for over 900 yards, 8 touchdowns, and like a 75% completion percentage. Just an incredible year. Threw for 4,600 yards, 34 touchdowns, had an interception problem that wasn't a problem for fantasy football. And he played 16 full games coming off an ACL injury. He was one of the candidates for comeback player too. So
he did exactly what we said would happen. He would start slow coming back from the injury, and then eventually once him and Chase got going, this offense could skyrocket, and it did. I believe me and you were relatively high. I think I had him at 13 on the season, and he scored about like 20 Scored about like 30 more points than I expected. So, I mean, not far off at all, but Jesus. And for these MVPs of each position, it's not just like Josh Allen clearly is the quarterback one, but you drafted him as the quarterback one. Yeah, Justin Herbert, quarterback two, but you drafted him near what would be quarterback two. Same with like Brady and Mahomes and Rodgers. But like Burrow, like you said, you drafted him much lower. I think Hurts was a good option here as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
Burrow beat him. He played another game than him, but he still beat him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It was
killed it.
a phenomenal season. That pairing is if you're playing Dynasty, and I know a lot of startups are happening, that's the stack you want, guys. Is the Burrow to really stack it all, get Chase and T Higgins, because this offense is wheels up moving forward. So, all right, running back MVP, another really easy one, Jonathan Taylor. This is a guy I definitely missed on. I had him as my running back 10 coming into the year, and he made every possible improvement that he could have made as a runner. He had his struggles as a rookie, and people forget that, but he came out, led the NFL in rushing, was the RB1 in PPR leagues. He ran for 1,800 yards and 18 touchdowns, and also caught 40 balls. He got 51 targets. So just an outstanding year from Jonathan Taylor. I don't have much to say.
Yeah, I mean, he scored 100 more points than I thought he would. And that's not. I had him at running back 11. I expected a very slow start. Also, when we did a lot of these projections, it was in the theory that Wentz wouldn't be playing the first couple of weeks as well. So I figured he'd have a shit first couple of weeks. I think he got more touchdowns than we expected. He got way more targets and receptions than we expected. I still don't think he's a good pass catcher, but he's improved from college. I still stand behind obviously my scouting report on him because that's him as a college player. But he has clearly worked on his hands. They're still not soft. He's not a great route runner, but he's better than Derrick Henry in that regard. He's better than Nick Chubb. He's evolved, and he's the guy. He is the top dynasty asset, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At least at skill position wise.
Yeah, for sure. Wide receiver MVP, Cooper Kupp, easy one. He was drafted behind Robert Woods, and then he said
late third round, early fourth was like his ADP, and he scored 429 points. Like,
I'm on record saying I wouldn't touch him there because I knew that Stafford was going to pick one, and I thought the one would have been Woods just based on their play style. But
yeah, we lean more Woods because of potential deep shots,
right?
And I still think in a full season we get there because Woods was starting to come back towards it after the incredible start the Cup had. But I mean, once that injury happened, it was full send with Cup. Like there's no going back. He's just dominated.
Yeah. And another one 191 targets, 145 receptions, 1,947 yards, and 16 touchdowns. One of the greatest wide receiver performances for a season of all time.
Yes.
Debatably the best. I could argue the best. But all right, tight end MVP. I feel bad that we went like pretty chalk with the MVP is the one at each position, but Mark Andrews is the tight end MVP.
But again, they were values.
Exactly.
Jonathan Taylor, I think, was some places push him up to RB5, but he was generally between like RB7 and 10. I think if we both knew Wentz was their full year and they would transition really well off the bat, we would have been both had him about like 6 or 7 in our rankings. I know we were relatively close to that as it was, but there was value there. Cooper Kupp, clearly a value there. He finished way above where he was supposed to. And with Andrews, same thing. He was the forgotten man. We put in new guys. We put in Pitts. We said Hawkinson would replace him as the number 3. Obviously, there's some injury stuff with guys like Waller and Kittle here, and Hawkinson, but still, Andrews consistent, man, and a value.
Yeah, in PPR, Andrews was drafted as the tight end 5 behind Kyle Pitts. And so the fact that he scored over 300 fantasy points at the tight end position, depending on your scoring format, obviously, means that he was by far the MVP. But
did it with multiple quarterbacks. Did it with different combinations of receivers on the field, different combinations of running backs. And it's not just the most points; he was also the most points per game. So even with like Kelsey and Gronk, who didn't play every game, and Kittle, who didn't play every game, and Schultz, who didn't play every game, and Hockenson, Waller, like he still dominated every aspect. So much deserved, much props.
Yes,
I don't know where you put him, dynasty tight end, as of right now. I think I would
top 3.
I think it's top 3 easy. I don't know where. I think it really matters where you put Kelsey at this point, going into another season with his age. If you start to drop him past the number 1, I think it's right, but it's also wrong, kind of thing. If Kittle can stay healthy, man, Mark Andrews doesn't matter, but he just can't.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be the 3, though, is Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews, and I think I was pretty adamant that Kelsey was the one until this season when Andrews kind of took it over, but we'll see. I still think that Kelsey is more liable to get to the number 1 spot over Andrews, but we'll see. We'll definitely have dynasty ranking shows as the summer continues. Biggest bust award, or not an award, sorry, buddy, but Allen Robinson is the biggest bust this year. He was drafted very, very highly. We thought of him very, very highly here at the cut. I had him as my wide receiver 11 this year, assuming that he wouldn't quit on his team like he did. And unfortunately, that's exactly what he did. He was drafted as the wide receiver 11 as well, per consensus. And he finished as the wide receiver. I don't have it pulled up. Damn it.
I would have pulled up, but I have to scroll for so long.
No, he finished as
81.
the wide receiver. That's what I have too. That's terrible. I mean, just like one of the worst.
Yeah,
worst seasons I've ever
points.
seen out of him.
He had 87 points on the year. For reference, I believe Michael Gallup played like 6 games or 8 games, had 91 and a half.
Yep. Yeah. And it wasn't, people will say like, well, that's what we should have expected with a rookie quarterback. You can only support one fantasy option. No, I mean, yes, but also Allen Robinson quit. And there were multiple examples of him just quitting, that he did not want to be out there, and they actually stopped playing him as much down the stretch. And so not a good look. He's a pending free agent. I mean, he only got
I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I'd like to give advice on Allen Robinson, but I just don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either. He's getting up there in age. He's 28. And he's a free agent. So we'll see. Maybe he can come to Cleveland and fix things, but probably not. All right. And then best value, or biggest surprise, best value, whatever you want to call it. We said Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel finished as the wide receiver 3 in PPR leagues. He caught 77 balls for 1,405 yards. He was 5th in the NFL in receiving yards. He only had 6 touchdowns through the air, and unfortunately I don't have all of his rushing touchdowns in here because Sleeper kind of hates doing all that, but he also added some touchdowns via the ground, and he threw one, so just an incredible wide receiver year, let alone where you could get him in drafts, which was very, very low. He was drafted as I have to scroll very, very far, so give me 1 second. Deebo Samuel was drafted as the wide receiver 36, so that's probably the best value, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I had him ranked at 33, and he just fucking shot up. I mean, but I also had Ayuk ranked highly, like everyone else. Yeah. I don't know. We get into these conversations, and I almost start wanting to do victory lap stuff, but we'll have time for that. Because me and you had some. So we had. I mean, I think our misses were industry misses or injury misses, so they don't really count. I'm sure there's one or two that are clearly your misses or whatever, but man, like Mike Williams for you mostly,
Yeah. And I was low on him.
Brandon Cooks, me on the bullshit last day of the right before Amon-Ra St. Brown saying he would be like a wide receiver too. It was complete luck. No, I'm not. This is complete luck, but man, what a year! Mooney for you as well. A little bit of Marquise Brown for me, Jacoby Myers for both of us. Like it was a good year. It's a good year for us.
Yeah. I won't. I do enough victory lapping on Twitter, so I won't do it just yet. When we get into the rankings, and
I will take the dub of Deontay Johnson over Chase Claypool. Christian can suck a fat one.
Yeah.
Don't ever doubt my boy again. I'll kill you. Don't you do it.
What's crazy, man, is I knew what Ben's arm was. What was I thinking?
I don't fucking know.
I was like, oh, he'll take a step and they'll use him in a different way. Well, no. Also, he's an asshole, and I don't think he's ever really going to be a dominant receiver. But all right, guys, that'll do it for our awards this year, and that'll do it for this episode of The Cut. So moving forward, and we talked about it last week, but we kind of have a little bit more of a schedule fleshed out. So draft season is upon us. We normally take a break, a long break. We did 2 weeks a little while ago. However, because the Senior Bowl is less than 3 weeks away, we cannot take a full week. We're taking like a week and a half, really, and debatably, we'll take a week and a half. So we're gonna be back on Monday, January 24th, live at 10:30 p.m. like we have been.
Yep. I think it's safe to now. We're gonna do our 1.0 show mock draft. Get you ready. Probably discuss some of the Senior Bowl people as well as just. I think when we're getting a draft season, I don't think there's any better way than how this starts for us with doing a mock draft than covering Senior Bowl and just getting full swing into this. And along with that week will also begin our Friday fixes. We are going to do at least one team every Friday from the 29th. I'm just guessing. That week, that Friday, up until the week before the draft, because the draft starts on Thursday. We will get through as many teams as we can. Maybe double up a couple weeks. Maybe get rid of another episode and just do a double Friday fix 1 week or so. Maybe tackle some through some articles as well. But either way, we're going to get through mainly the teams that are not in the playoffs right now, I would say, and then some playoff teams. But a lot of the early picks, there's some double ups. So we are for sure going to cover like the Jaguars, the Lions, the Jets, the Giants, the Eagles for fucking sure, because that's going to be fun with 3 picks and what they have. So, I'm sure we're going to cover the Browns. I'm sure we'll probably cover the Raiders because of me. We'll probably bring on Sweet to cover the Broncos. We'll probably try and find other industry people to cover other teams. So, those are some of the more fun shows. But we're starting off with a bang with, I believe, mock draft and the Jaguars on Friday.
Yeah, we'll for sure do the Jaguars that Friday. The mock draft will be that Monday. And then after that, guys, we'll have a month of kind of like general draft coverage or just general draft discussion, NFL news, things like that. And then we're going to get into our rankings and our big board and the draft guide that will be coming to you it'll be earlier this year. We're not going to get it out like the week before the draft like we did last year. It will be out early. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. We talked about it last week, but this is our favorite. It's my favorite part, at least. I love draft season. I'm 120 prospects deep. right now. And so my goal is to hit 350 this year, which would be more than I have watched in the last 2 years combined. So good luck to me. I'm not going to hit that, but like that's the goal. We set high goals.
So. In retrospect, I'm probably at about 10.
That's fine.
And mostly from looking at games last year and people that returned, and then maybe 200. I'm not going to get 350. There's no chance.
No. Well, I mean, I feel good about getting to at least 250 at this point, but 105 days left for the NFL draft if you're listening to this on the day that it releases. So that's incredibly exciting. It is right around the corner. So other than that, guys, make sure you check out the podcast feed. The DFS Deep Dive is doing a show this week. The Coach Approach did not. We're figuring out Adam's show for Thursday nights. So we'll see what is in store. I think he might transition that to a draft show as well. So we're just going to have a lot of fun on this podcast network. So anything to add before we bounce?
This is going to be an exciting weekend of playoff football. I get to watch all the games, thankfully. Don't have to work, but this is going to be really, really fun. I'm excited to watch this Raiders game more than pretty much anything. I think they'll probably lose, but that's the life. We can't all be the Chiefs. We can't all be Tampa. Sometimes you have to just lose, but at least they'll probably lose going down swinging. It should be fun.
Yeah. Words to live by. Sometimes you just have to lose. Sometimes you're a loser.
But shit happens. Giants, regular season wise, didn't deserve to make it to 2 Super Bowls and win 2.
That's true.
Teams change in the playoffs sometimes. Who knows?
That's true. Could be the Raiders. But on that note, we have to get out of here before we say more crazy things. We'll be back again in about a week and a half, Monday the 24th. Yeah, Monday, January 24th. So, and we'll spend that time getting all this good content ready for you guys. So for Randy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys then. Later.